1. They're emotionally overwhelmed. Many people disappear when they're struggling internally. When stress, anxiety, depression, or emotional exhaustion takes over, even simple conversations can feel like a burden. Instead of explaining what they're going through, they withdraw. Not because they hate you, but because they don't have the emotional energy to engage. Psychologists call this emotional avoidance. Some people cope with stress by talking, others cope by disappearing. If someone who was normally caring suddenly becomes distant, emotional overwhelm may be the reason. 2. They're testing your reaction. This one is uncomfortable but common. Sometimes people intentionally ignore others to see how they'll react. Will you chase them? Will you send multiple messages? Will you become desperate? This behavior often comes from insecurity rather than confidence. They want reassurance. They want proof that they're important. Unfortunately, ignoring someone becomes their way of seeking validation. Healthy relationships don't require these games, but many people still play them. 3. They've lost interest but don't want conflict. One of the hardest truths to accept is that sometimes people lose interest, but instead of communicating honestly, they choose silence. Why? Because confrontation makes them uncomfortable. Telling someone the truth can feel awkward, so they avoid the conversation altogether. Psychology refers to this as conflict avoidance. Rather than saying, "I don't feel the same way anymore," they slowly disappear. It's not mature, but it's common, and their silence often says more than their words ever could. 4. They're prioritizing something else. Here's something people rarely consider. You may not be ignored because you're unimportant. You may be ignored because something else has become a higher priority. Work, family, health, financial problems, personal goals. Life can become overwhelming. The mistake many people make is assuming they're the center of another person's world. Everyone is fighting battles you can't see. Sometimes their attention is simply focused elsewhere. 5. They feel hurt by something. Not everyone expresses pain openly. Some people withdraw when they're hurt. Instead of discussing the issue, they create distance. Their silence becomes a form of protection. Maybe something you said affected them. Maybe they misunderstood your intentions. Maybe they're disappointed. The challenge is that they often expect you to magically know what's wrong. And when you don't, the distance grows even more. 6. They want control. Psychology has shown that attention is a powerful form of influence. Some people understand this. They know that when they suddenly withdraw attention, it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty creates emotional dependence. You start wondering, you start chasing, you start thinking about them constantly. This gives them a sense of power. While not everyone does this intentionally, some people use silence as a way to control relationships. Recognizing this pattern can protect you from manipulation. 7. They're afraid of vulnerability. Relationships require openness, and openness can be terrifying. Some people pull away the moment emotional intimacy starts growing. Why? Because getting close means risking rejection. It means becoming vulnerable. For someone with deep fears of abandonment or emotional pain, ignoring others becomes a defense mechanism. The closer they feel, the more they retreat. It's a paradox that psychologists often see in attachment theory. 8. They assume you'll always be there. This reason surprises many people. Sometimes people ignore you because they've become too comfortable. They assume you'll never leave. They assume you'll always understand. They assume you'll keep waiting. Ironically, the people closest to us are often the ones we take for granted. Not because we don't care, but because we become accustomed to their presence. This doesn't make the behavior right, but it explains why it happens. 9. They're dealing with their own insecurities. Insecurity affects behavior in unexpected ways. Some people avoid conversations because they fear being judged. Others worry they'll say the wrong thing. Some feel they aren't good enough. As a result, they withdraw. From the outside, it looks like rejection, but internally, it's often self-doubt. The silence isn't always about you. Sometimes it's a battle they're fighting with themselves. 10. They simply don't value the relationship enough. This is perhaps the most difficult possibility. Not every relationship carries the same importance for both people. You may invest deeply, they may not. You may think about them constantly, they may think about you occasionally. When this happens, the imbalance becomes visible through behavior. People generally make time for what truly matters to them. And while exceptions exist, consistent neglect often reveals priorities. The truth may hurt, but clarity is better than false hope. What should you do when someone ignores you? Now that we understand the psychology behind being ignored, let's answer the most important question. What should you do? First, don't panic. Emotional reactions usually make the situation worse. Second, avoid sending message after message. Desperation rarely creates attraction or respect. Third, communicate clearly. If the relationship matters, express your concerns calmly. And finally, know your worth. You cannot force someone to value your presence. You cannot force communication. You cannot force effort. Relationships require participation from both sides. If someone consistently ignores you, the healthiest response may be to step back and protect your peace.